Please keep it up.
Okay.
Yeah, your call, your call.
Yeah.
I'm far enough away that I think,
I'm an old guy with a condition.
well, I'm an old guy. Probably an older guy. We've been staying healthy, I hope?
Yeah, we don't do anything. I got a dog.
Yeah, I have a Labrador who thinks he's human.
Yes. That's a great breed. I got a golden.
Yeah, they're good breed.
Except this morning, when I took him out, he decided to roll in something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Not a good way to start
Of
the
course, as soon
day.
as you get the bath ready, he runs and hides. Mine does anyway. How do we get this thing to work?
It is, it's all set to go. You just need to start talking.
Oh,
More.
okay. I guess we're set to go here. After a, what, 7-month delay? Something like that. This is People versus Stacks. Well, glad to see everyone's alive and well and healthy and so forth. So, if you are ready, I'll see you, assuming we're recording properly. I'll have to confess, I'm not used to this sort of thing, so.
Nobody
Hey,
is.
should it be
Nobody is.
videotaping? Should it be videotaping? It's, the video has a big red mark in front of the video, so. But we don't need to see anything on the screen? Okay, all right.
The thing I know about Zoom is my wife bought stock in it, and it did quite well.
Okay.
Darn, wish I thought
No,
of
he
that.
has it off. Okay, but I'll tell him. All right, thanks. Okay, thanks, bye. That was Judge Graham, she said what she does. Yes. But we're ready to go.
Okay, and I guess you can take your mask off if you want, but of course you get used to it, so I understand. All right,
Appearances?
yes.
Joshua Holman on behalf of the people, P number 71971.
Eric Clark appearing on behalf of the defendant 31126. Judge, I have a housekeeping matter.
Sure.
I filed a motion, set it up for today. The motion is to compel discovery as well as an inspection of the animals. I filed it with the court, sent a copy to the prosecutor attorney. What I'm asking for is the following. Through discovery, in a review of the reports, it appears that Detective Fraggett was wearing a body cam. And when we did discovery, we asked for all audio, video. Some was disclosed. I don't have the body cam. The report reflects it. I'm not sure if there is one or not, but it does reflect that she was wearing a body cam.
I see the motion here. It was,
And the reason I'm asking to file the motion, because it could be that this is our last day with you, jurisdiction-wise. I don't know.
I'm available in the sense of if you need that prior to any ruling on any motions to bind over, anything like that. I'm flexible. Remember, I'm an old retiree that can come up here or whatever, so.
The second item I requested in my motion was a copy of the report, the autopsy on the dead kangaroo. As you remember, there was testimony that they confiscated the kangaroo, and it died apparently in transit of a broken neck. But we feel that the autopsy report would reflect its general health.
What was may I ask, what was there an autopsy? Do they, I don't know if you do autopsy.
Yes, there was, according to the vet from the zoo who gave us the opinion.
Oh, that's right, that's right. That would be,
So there is a report, I requested it prior. And finally, one last request I made, which is an inspection of my client's pets. We've been making this request since the very beginning of this case. These are his animals, they're his animals until a court rules otherwise. But the concern is that some of the animals were given, according to the testimony, to people who aren't licensed, who aren't experienced in handling these animals. Obviously, the death of his kangaroo, which is a very expensive pet, causes concern. We've retained an expert veterinarian to do the inspection. We're agreeing to comply with all COVID-19 protocol to do it. It's at our expense. We just would like that to happen. And there's no downside to the prosecutor.
all right, regarding, what, body cam?
Your Honor, I'm not sure what report defense counsel is referencing. Detective Fraggett was not wearing a body cam on that particular day. She would know better than anybody. There is no body cam to furnish for that, so I can't hand over something that doesn't exist. So there is no body cam.
I will take prosecutor's word on that. He's an officer of the court.
In regards to the necropsy that occurred to the kangaroo,
Yes.
the autopsy, it appears, did occur. I don't know if it occurred in the same way that it would normally occur. Oftentimes, the only people that do actual official necropsies for the purposes of criminal court is the vet school up in Lansing, where we often send a lot of our dead dogs and cats and things like that, where they perform that particular service.
To the best of your knowledge, then, let me interrupt here. If the autopsy only revealed the neck injury, would it have, to the best of your knowledge, reveal anything else? In other words,
Here's the issue. If such a report does exist, it hasn't been turned over to us. We've tried to contact the zoo again since he sent me that request. I've been unable to get in touch with anybody up at the zoo. I know they've been closed to the public for quite a while, so I don't know if I only have business phones and there's nobody located at the zoo anymore and they're working from home. But if such a report exists, which I'm not sure does, because this autopsy would have been only for their own purposes, not necessarily for, the standards that we expect in a criminal type of case. It has not been given to us. I can keep working on that. We'll try and keep contacting the vets at the zoo. This can be turned over if we're able to discover it. I don't think it should have an effect on this court on what it wants to do today, or delay this case any longer than it's already gone. We're not alleging that the death of the kangaroo was the fault of the defendant in any way. It doesn't reflect on any of the charges against him or the forfeiture matter that the case is concerning at this point in time. But that is another item that I have actually tried to track down to see if it exists or something akin to it and hand over to defense counsel, but I don't have it at this point in time to be able to turn it over.
okay, here's an idea. Your call, I can do this aspect today and order I guess you say, if it exists, the autopsy. Does that sound reasonable?
If it exists, yeah, as I say, sorry, Judge, as I say, the physician who prosecutor brought it testified, there is a report, they did the autopsy. I could see, quite frankly, that it could be, it clearly is not our fault. That's not where I was going with it. I know whose fault it was, if there was to be blame, but I'm looking at that it would benefit my client and buffer his testimony and evidence that this animal, as well as the others, were in good health.
Yeah, I understand. And then what, the third was you inspect the animal, or?
I'm sorry?
The third request was to?
Just to my client to inspect the animals to make, yes,
With your expert?
with my expert, not my client.
Judge, our stance on that is that these are all evidence of a possible crime that are currently now in a forfeiture hearing. We don't let criminal defendants inspect their own property that is up for forfeiture. We don't let criminal defendants go inspect weapons that are taken from them, monies that are taken from them, things of that nature. all of these animals are being given the proper care. They do not need an inspection by defense. I mean, he only wants that for his, for his own peace of mind, but there is absolutely no law that requires us to allow the particular inspection of something that is evidence of a crime for that defendant.
Well, in most cases, I understand, yeah, but here's a case where the allegations are that those items, namely the animals, were neglected, abused, whatever. And it's, I mean, like you have a weapon's a weapon, but if you have an animal, it's that in and of itself is what you're charging, the neglect of that animal or the abuse of the animal is what you're charging the defendant with.
Yes.
I'm sure I could be a lot more articulate with this if I had more time to think about it, but you see where I'm going with it.
Well, Judge, any inspection now, though, can't
Yeah.
possibly reflect on what the condition of those animals were, back in 2018 when this thing all started. We can tell them what the condition is of today, but it's not going to have any bearing on the cases before the court at this point in time.
I
Well-
disagree. I think that my expert might have a different opinion than Mr. Holman, who's a prosecutor.
Sure, he's being paid to have a different opinion.
Well, here's my thought. I agree that what the animals were like in, was it 2019? What was the date here? When the charges came down, namely, check the notes here, March, April 2019, and so forth, that time frame.
August
Which is-
2019 is the.
Yeah, well, the time frame began, I think, in March, because that's one of the witnesses said they worked for the defendant, and,
Yeah, the testimony of the witnesses it took place in
but I have August 15, 2019.
February.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but anyway, you get the idea. You're talking, well, going on 2 years.
Year and
Year and a half.
A little over a year.
Yeah, well, August, that's right. Either way, a lot can happen in a year's time. But at that point, if defense is allowed to inspect the animals, obviously it's the weight of the testimony of the expert. In October 2020, the animals are in good health, but we allege in August of 2019 they were not. So it's a question of not necessarily admissibility, but of,
Wait.
thank you, weight. So I would allow that.
Thank you, Judge.
The other thing I would allow is, again, and you've said you agree, if there's an autopsy available, that it be turned over to, of kangaroo be turned over to defense.
Yes.
So if, Mr. Clark, if you would you want to do an order,
I will prepare an order.
and,
and have it,
make sure to put if available. you know,
Yes.
Because obviously if it's, they can't get it, they can't get it, so.
If the court orders that, that's fine, we'll comply with it. The next question is that going to delay the hearing that we have scheduled today?
No, I think it goes to, well, I don't know. No, because during the course of this exam, and in the past other exams I've had, there's been evidence presented that shows, I won't say exculpatory, but at least pro-defense versus pro-prosecution, which obviously you have to comply with the law that says you present the crime's been committed, probable cause, and the whole bit. But the other evidence, it would be more for trial. In other words, I would, in your place, I'd argue, well, that's fine, maybe it'll show reasonable doubt, maybe it won't, maybe it's culpatory, maybe it isn't, but this standard is, of course, probable cause only, not beyond a reasonable doubt, not preponderance, but nevertheless,
Yes.
you know what I'm talking about. You've been around enough.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So
Thank you, Judge.
we can complete the hearing today, and then that'll be an ongoing discovery order.
And I have also a question. Get all my notes. Oh, the section 750.50, parent 3, I believe it is, which is the forfeiture. Are we here on that also, or is that another?
Yes, that should also be.
Now, here's a situation where, because there were different standards, different set of circumstance, well, not set of circumstances, different standards.
The standards are all not that much different.
Well,
Depending on
yeah,
How you look
they
at
are.
probable cause to preponderance.
They are, they're enough different that I hesitate to. I mean, preponderance of the evidence is one thing, probable cause is another one. And I have to view the evidence from two different points of view. And if the defense has evidence to present on the probable cause aspect of this, namely the forfeiture action, they should be allowed to do it, including anything that they might acquire through discovery that they're just requested. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm
But
saying?
Judge, I fail to see how an inspection of an animal in October of 2020 has any bearing on what the condition of that animal was back in August of 2018.
Well, that's what you argue at the forfeiture hearing. I mean, you're right. It may have no bearing.
Well, our issue is that we don't want this to delay any further.
Well, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
There's also justice delayed, justice denied, and all that sort of thing, but nevertheless, justice. Bottom line is, question number one, should it be bound over? And question number two, should it be forfeited? Should the animal be forfeited? As far as I'm concerned, those are two different. I can use some of the evidence from the criminal aspects, but it's a different hearing as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with you. It's a different hearing. It's a different standard of proof.
I'm glad we agree on something.
Thank you.
Okay, so from that point of view, let's do round one first, which is the bind over, okay?
All right.
And then we will talk about the forfeiture action when we're done, okay?
Okay.
So,
I'm ready to call my first witness.
So we still have witnesses left that we need to call, Judge.
Well, first of all, Judge, we've got people in the courtroom. I moved to sequester if they're witnesses.
Well,
I'm not sure if they
this is the witness that we need to call, Judge, is Dr. Christine Scott, and then when she's done, I'll also need to call the officer in charge, and that's all the witnesses I anticipate to call.
As I recall, at the end of the last hearing, the prosecutor rested.
No, I
don't-
knew that we hadn't gotten to Dr. Scott the whole time.
I don't recall that, but
Yes.
I mean, of course, after 7 months, it's been a long time, but,
I've known that this doctor is the one that we have, that's been waiting the whole time.
okay. Go ahead. I should get this. Good morning. Could you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear affirm testimony to be given? Matter now hearing should be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Okay, be seated, please.
Judge, outside of being an old guy losing his hearing anyways, I am now confronted with two barriers in front of me. Could you just ask the witness to speak up so I can hear?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Sure.
May I, Your Honor?
No, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name nice and loud so everybody can hear you? We're gonna,
Yes, my name is Dr. Christine Scott. I'm a veterinarian. I have a veterinary clinic in Birmingham for the past 30 years, and I've been practicing veterinary medicine since 1986.
Judge, I apologize again. I want to get through this. Can I go sit over
Yeah,
there?
oh, by all means, yeah, whatever you need to hear and so forth.
Thank you.
Have you ever been called to testify as an expert in veterinary medicine before?
No, I have not.
Okay. Do you have expertise or education that leads you to that position?
Well, in this particular case, I have been treating exotic pets, mostly companion type birds, reptiles, small pocket pets, in addition to my practice where I see dogs and cats. And I've been doing that for the past 34 years.
And where did you go to veterinary school?
Michigan State University,
And that degree was in?
Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, 1986.
Are there other animals that you've cared for during the course of your practice?
Primarily, as I say, the bulk of my practice is dogs and cats, and but I have a very good percentage of birds and reptiles and small pocket pets that are a really strong interest to me, and I have clients that come from all over Metro Detroit to schedule appointments with me.
Your Honor, I would like to offer Dr. Scott as an expert in the area of veterinary medicine. I can allow it to the defense counsel if he wishes to voir dire to her qualifications.
Go ahead, Scott.
Doctor, I'm assuming the prosecutor is going to ask you about your evaluation of some animals that relate to this case in somehow, correct?
That's correct.
Could you tell me what animals you evaluated?
Yes, it was August 18th, 2019. I was called to evaluate a very large group of hedgehogs,
A hedgehog,
not one, but 79 hedgehogs,
okay,
2 Flemish giant rabbits, 1 200-pound reticulated python, and 2 mature iguanas.
in your practice before August of 2019, had you ever examined hedgehogs before?
Yes, I have.
And do you feel confident that you were familiar with the norm and the standards of care for hedgehogs?
Yes, absolutely.
And how about the same for the Fleming's rabbits? Have you
Yes.
ever examined them before?
Yes, I have.
And same question, do you feel comfortable that you're familiar with the standard of care for those kind of rabbits?
Yes, absolutely.
And by the way, is the standard of care for those rabbits any significantly different than other rabbits?
Not significantly, no.
Okay. And the python, same question. Have you ever examined it before?
Pythons?
Pythons?
Yes, all snakes I have,
Six.
other than poisonous.
This wasn't poisonous, was it?
No,
Okay. And the iguanas also?
absolutely, yes.
Okay. I'm satisfied, Judge.
Okay,
Thank you. So again, I'll ask for her
yes.
to be
It's
qualified as an expert in veterinary
Yes.
medicine.
under chapter 7, yes.
Thank you, Your
Rules of evidence.
Honor. So you said you had received all of these types of animals for examination, correct?
Yes, I actually examined them at Mr. Mark Rosenthal's area. That is where I examined them. I went out to his place in Belleville.
Do you recall what day that occurred?
Yes, it was August 19th.
Okay. And do you know what day it was that Mark Rosenthal would have come into possession of these animals?
I believe it was August 16th, a Friday.
So you were under the understanding that those animals had been with him for 2 or 3 days at that point in
I'm
time?
not sure about the time. I thought it was either that day or the day prior. I'm not 100%
Okay.
certain, yeah.
But that he had come into these animals relatively recently.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Were you told what your task was or what you were looking for or anything like that?
Yes, when he contacted me that evening on the 16th,
Who is he?
Mr. Mark Rosenthal, he asked if I would be willing to involve myself in this case, examining these animals that were confiscated, I suppose is the word. And I said, yes, I'd be happy to help out in any way I can.
Did he give you any background on what these animals had gone through or what you might be expecting when you examine these animals?
Yes, he said that there was questionable care, husbandry issues with these animals. They were not in the best of care, so I was prepared.
Which animals did you examine first?
I examined the hedgehogs. There were 79 of them. My understanding is when they were seized, they were all in one containment.
Again, I'm having an issue hearing you,
Okay.
but when you say you were given information, could you just tell us who's giving you this information?
Mr. Mark Rosenthal.
Okay.
How are the hedgehogs being housed at Mr. Rosenthal's facility?
Well, what he had done was he segregated them into groups. He had a very large containment for the pregnant females. There was another containment for the juveniles, and then there was another containment for the mature adults.
Are you familiar with how hedgehogs should be housed or cared for?
Absolutely. They
And
should either be housed individually or in very, very small groups with no more than one male.
And does that go to their health?
Absolutely.
Why would the way that they're housed affect the health of a hedgehog?
It's overcrowding, it's stress, it's unhygienic. It leads to a myriad of health issues, which I witnessed when I examined these hedgehogs.
What will hedgehogs do when they are kept together in larger groups that maybe other animals don't? Like several dogs can sleep together on a pillow. Why can't a bunch of
Right.
hedgehogs be
Yeah,
all
that's
together in the
just-
same place?
Yeah, so that's a lot different. Like I say, the overcrowding is actually leads to a lot of stress, physiological stress, sometimes aggression if there's more than one male in a small enclosure. These hedgehogs were in very poor condition, the majority of them. I had submitted some photos that document what I saw. There were severe skin problems, inflamed skin, crusting, scabbing, swollen limbs. There were some that had such severe involvement of their face and ears, they were deformed. The ears were necrotic.
What does that mean?
Means the tissue has died.
Okay.
I'm sorry, repeat that, please. Tissue what?
Several of the hedgehogs had such skin involvement that it affected their ears, and their margins are becoming necrotic, which they turn black and they just basically die off.
How many hedgehogs in total did you examine?
79.
And approximately how many of them seem to have health problems or skin problems in some way?
I would say about 40% of them.
Have you seen these types of maladies in examining hedgehogs before in your experience as a veterinarian?
The pets that I've seen in my practice, I've never seen anything quite like this.
Is this a more severe case of what you've seen in the
Yes,
past? Is there a way that hedgehogs tend to get these types of maladies?
Again, I think I always look at husbandry, which basically is a term we use for housing, nutrition, temperature, ambient temperatures and humidity and such. And hedgehogs have a very specific kind of husbandry that's required to keep them healthy. They require an ambient temperature of about 75 to 78 degrees. They need a low humidity of less than 40%. And then when you have them in crowded situations, it's just a recipe for disaster.
What are the hedgehogs doing to themselves or to each other that might lead to these conditions if they're kept in an environment of poor husbandry?
Well, they need a lot of exercise. They need to be able to have a large enough enclosure where they can freely move around. Obviously, nutrition's a big issue too. When they're kept, from my understanding, all 79 of these were seized in one large container. There were pregnant females, there were juveniles, there were adult males. There were just it's just a horrific set of circumstances to see these animals in this kind of condition.
Is there a reason why you might not house males together with females?
Yeah, there could be, well, obviously, the pregnancy issue and they, and such, and a lot of males together, they can get very aggressive with each other.
Can the males harm each other or the females in the pursuit to try and mate with the females?
Of course, yeah.
Generally, what type of, would a bedding be required to house a hedgehog of some
I'm
kind?
sorry?
Would a bedding be required to house a hedgehog in some
Bedding?
fashion?
Well, again, they are not meant to be housed in groups. That's just not in, their natural environment. Again, there's certain requirements in terms of temperature and humidity. You get a big group like that together. There's an increase in humidity, which can lead to skin problems. They're very prone to bacterial and fungal infections of their skin. They're also prone to mite infestation. And all of these things are increased when you are putting them in an environment that's not ideal.
Did you see any evidence of fungal infection or mite infestation at all with these animals?
Well, in order to have done that, I would have had to do some diagnostic testing, taking them back with me to my veterinary for their diagnostics. However, I did treat them with a broad spectrum antibiotic as well as some topical creams to use, particularly on the
Objection, Judge, it's non-responsive. He asked her if he saw that, and she's just saying what she treated him with.
Well, non-responsive would be my objection, Your Honor.
Ma'am, Doctor, why don't you continue with what you're saying? Eventually, I would think you would get to that, so.
Yeah, well, as far as the diagnostic of a fungal infection requires doing some specific culture testing, which I was not going to be doing at that particular time. I was there to just do evaluation of what I saw and my suspicions, and as far as it being fungal or bacterial is kind of irrelevant at this point. It's just that they were all in terrible conditions.
Did you do any follow-up examinations of these hedgehogs after August 18th?
No, I did not, but I did speak with Mr. Rosenthal. I believe it was about...
Objection, hearsay, Judge.
Well, let's see what he has to say first.
Well, I was trying to answer his question about follow-up. I didn't physically follow up, no.
Okay.
Were you sent any pictures or anything like that after August 18th about the
No.
condition of the animals? Okay. I won't get into that. You also examined a python there, correct?
Yes, it was a very, very large python. I really couldn't physically handle him. He was up in an enclosure quite high up, and but it was my understanding that when he was seized, there was some evidence of nasal discharge, which
Evidence of what, ma'am?
nasal discharge, a nasal discharge.
Did you see it?
That's what I was told when, prior to my arrival. No, let me just finish. And when I arrived, I, examined through the plexiglass, and I did not see any evidence of any nasal discharge. However, that does not rule out the possibility of pneumonia, which is very common in all species of snakes.
What type of examination were you able to make on that snake?
It was more of just a visual examination through the plexiglass. I mean, he was clearly a very, very large 200-pound reticulated python. We really couldn't get him out and start doing a whole lot. But the primary thing, I took some photographs and looked at him, and I didn't see any evidence of nasal discharge at that particular time. But again, that does not rule out a serious pneumonia.
Did you give that animal any type of treatment?
I left antibiotic injections to be used if there was some evidence of worsening of the condition. The recommendation was to increase the humidity, which sometimes can be very beneficial for these snakes that have respiratory disease.
So are you familiar with how one should, the husbandry of how one should care for a snake? Or a reticulated python specifically in this case?
Well, the reticulated pythons, you know, for one of that size, you know, you'd want to have an enclosure at least 10 feet long, about 3 feet high, and about 4 feet wide. You need to have humidity is very important, usually between 50 and 60%. And humidity is a real big problem with snakes. It's hard sometimes to keep that humidity up enough, and it does predispose them to respiratory infections are very, very common in snakes as a whole. And a lot of it has to do with how the animal is kept in the environment.
So the humidity is often a major factor in
Many times, yes.
whether a python does develop a respiratory infection.
Yes.
Did you also examine some iguanas?
Well, the 2 iguanas were extremely aggressive. They were mature iguanas, not quite sure their age, but they were in an enclosure. We went to lift the enclosure top off, and they were lashing out and trying. They were very, very aggressive. I really couldn't wrap them up in a blanket like I typically do and do a thorough exam on them.
How does an aggressive iguana behave? What types of things are doing that make it aggressive?
When you include the length of their tail, which they can use as a whip, they're pretty powerful. And if they haven't been handled much, then they're going to be a lot more resistant to being examined. But yeah, they were too aggressive to handle safely without some kind of sedation or something of that nature.
What type of husbandry would an iguana of this type require?
Well, again, we need a lot of space, enclosure-wise. Their temperature gradient is in the mid-80s. You want to have a basking area of at least 92 to 100 for them. They're very prone to something called metabolic bone disease, which is a combination of inadequate calcium intake as well as an inadequate exposure to UVA and UVB lighting. Very, very common thing, very problematic. And,
why do they need that specific type of lighting?
because the lighting stimulates sunlight, which activates vitamin D into its active form, which allows them to absorb calcium from their diet.
Can the husbandry of an iguana have anything to do with aggressive behavior that it might exhibit?
I don't know. I don't know that there is a direct correlation.
Did you also examine 2 Flemish giant rabbits as well?
Yes.
How was their condition when you saw them?
They were both underweight. They were just kept together in an enclosure, small tub-like enclosure. The issue with rabbits, again, they appeared to be underweight, and not cared for properly.
What type of husbandry goes along with rabbits of this type?
Well, they need to be maintained. Usually they're housed, well, with the 2 Flemish giants, it's a little bit different than some of the smaller types and breeds of rabbits, but they need plenty of exercise. They need a combination of high fiber diet, leafy greens, hay, limited amounts of pellets. Otherwise, they are very prone to GI motility issues and dental disease.
What types of exercise would you expect?
Just walking, just having free access, to exercise at least once a day. That keeps them healthy, keeps their motility in a normal range.
Were there any other animals that you examined? In general, what would you say was the condition of all of these animals together as a group?
I think they were in poor condition.
Can-
I believe they were in poor condition.
And you base that off of what?
My visual exam and experience.
I have no further questions for this witness at this time.
Did you ever see these animals, any of them, in the care of my client or his facility?
No, I did not.
So when you first saw all these animals, they were in the care of Mr. Rosenthal.
I think within a 24-hour period, yes.
And you got your history from Mr. Rosenthal on these animals, correct?
I also spoke to detective, forgot what her first.
And did she give you an opinion on their care?
Just that there was an ongoing issue with this particular individual.
Did she tell you how they were housed or explain the facility?
No, just that they were seized in a warehouse and that.
If Mr. Rosenthal's history that he gave you was false, would that change your opinion on anything?
No. I'm basing my opinion on my years of working with these animals and what I saw.
Okay. Just to be clear, you did not examine the python. You looked at it, correct?
I looked at him, yes.
And the python you said was up in
He
a
was-
tree.
Yeah, not in a tree. He had him in a large enclosure, kind of above. So-
How many feet away was he?
I got up there. I mean, I was pretty much within 2 feet of him.
But you didn't examine him.
I could not examine him, no.
Is there any correlation on its care for a snake to get that big? In other words, you say it's a rather large snake, and I've seen a picture of it. It's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
For a snake to get that big, is it true that it had to have been taken care of at some point, fed?
Yeah, I would say.
Housed properly? I mean, is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement, yeah.
So clearly, there was some proper care for that snake before you saw it.
I would say so, yeah. I mean, he didn't look
Okay.
underweight, but
And the iguanas, you said they were too aggressive for you to examine.
yes.
So you have no opinion except for your visual of what their condition was,
Yeah,
correct?
visually, they looked thin. They looked a little dehydrated, but I couldn't pick them up and do a proper exam without some kind of.
Do you know what their condition was when Mr. Rosenthal got them?
Again, I believe he got them the day before, so I mean, I came out as quickly as I could to examine them, so.
Could the recent change of their environment cause them to become aggressive?
No,
It could not?
no,
Would their recent change of handler cause them to be aggressive?
no,
Because at this point, when you saw them a day or 2 days later, they're in an unfamiliar environment, correct? And an unfamiliar handler. You're telling me that neither of those factors come into play?
I don't believe so. I mean, I've seen adult iguanas that are as, comes to my veterinary clinic, which is a very stressful experience, and I easily handle them. So I'm not saying that, it's my belief that that's their personality and their behavior, not just once they were with Mr. Rosenthal.
Okay, so, but that's not a condition that one teaches or installs in raising or caring for an iguana.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite understanding.
Sure,
the
you
question.
just told me that you believe it's just their nature or their character.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they were very aggressive, they were unmanageable to be physically examined, and as far as I'm concerned, that represents to me they weren't handled much or probably cared for properly.
And you base that on what?
On my experience,
Again, these were big iguanas?
they were, adult sized.
How big were they?
I mean, body-wise, body's here, tail there.
About 3-4 feet tall, long?
I'd say so, including the tail.
To a layperson, that would be a big animal.
it's an adult iguana.
Same question I asked you about a python. With the fact that they were raised from small iguanas to get that size, was that any indication that their care, their feeding was proper at
Well,
some
I
point?
can't speculate on that. I mean, you know, there could be intermittent moments of, you know, an iguana being healthy, but then it's not. I mean, as I say, I can't rule out that those animals didn't have metabolic bone disease. They needed some further diagnostics, but I was not in that position to be doing that.
You can't rule it out, but there was no evidence
Well,
that they had it, was there?
because animals are not like people. They don't physically show a lot of the maladies that they have. That's why we do what we do, blood work, x-rays and such.
Yeah, but we don't want you to speculate. If you saw it and examined it,
They didn't look healthy to me. They looked underweight.
and how much were they supposed to weigh?
Well, that depends, male, female versus, you know, they can weigh anything from, you know, 3 to 6 pounds. I mean, it's just,
How much did they weigh?
we didn't weigh them. I couldn't examine them, as I said.
Do you have a guesstimate
No,
on
I
how much
don't.
they
I
weigh?
do not have a guesstimate, no.
And you indicated that the rabbits, the 2 rabbits were, quote, underweight.
They appeared underweight, yes.
How much did they weigh?
I didn't weigh them. I'm looking at them from a visual standpoint.
And you're speculating that they're underweight.
They were visually underweight.
But you have no clue as to how much they weighed.
No, I did not.
And in your experience, when you say they were underweight, by how much?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
That's precisely my point.
Well,
Objection, Your Honor.
I think-
Counsel should
I'll
limit
I'll
his,
withdraw it, Judge. The conditions that you saw of the hedgehogs, did you ever see them in a large crowded condition? Did you ever see them in a condition that was described to you by Mr. Rosenthal?
I was not there when these animals were seized.
You said you saw some with skin problems,
Yes.
and is that skin problem common within the hedgehog species?
Not unless there's a problem with husbandry.
I'm sorry?
Not unless there's a problem with how they're being maintained in their husbandry.
And scabbing of what?
Scabbing of their feet, abdomen, ears, face.
Is that a common condition?
It's not a common condition if they're well cared for.
Even in a group that size?
Well, there shouldn't be a group that size. They're not meant to be kept in a group like that. As I stated earlier, they're meant to be kept in no more than 1 to 2 hedgehogs in one given enclosure, and there were 79 of them in one. That's outrageous.
Did you see that?
I did not see that,
So how do you know it existed?
because when I examined the hedgehogs, Mr. Rosenthal had segregated them into groups because of the fact that there were pregnant females, there were males, there were juveniles, all kept together.
Do you know the size of a normal litter for a hedgehog?
Usually between 3 to 4.
So if these hedgehogs have been delivering 5 to 8 babies at a time, is that indicative of their health?
Not necessarily. Just means that they're reproducing, but not under healthy circumstances. They should never be in a group like that. I can't emphasize that enough.
I understand what you're saying. Doctor, did you author a report?
Pardon me?
Did you write a report?
I submitted a report to Detective Fraggett and to
if you believe that the snake had pneumonia, it would have most likely died, correct?
Not necessarily,
And why is that?
because they can recover.
So it's not a serious condition?
It can be a serious condition, but if with the proper medication and alterations in the environment, there is a chance to recover.
So if the snake is currently alive,
Yeah,
would that indicate that either it didn't have pneumonia to begin with, or that
or,
it
or it
worked
could
itself
have
through?
had pneumonia, but perhaps changing and increasing the humidity helped to resolve it or at least mitigate it.
Do you have an opinion that if the iguanas were sick, that they would
Okay.
not have the strength to be as aggressive as you described?
Well, they can still be aggressive even if they're very sick. You know, animals have a fight or flight response, and, you know, I've seen the sickest animals put up a big fight, so.
You know what the recommended diet is for iguanas?
Yes.
What?
Adults are vegetarians, so they subsist on vegetables, greens. Very important to have vitamin A and calcium-rich food items. The juveniles do often eat insects and some crickets and things, but they're completely vegetarian.
Have you ever heard of Missouri iguana food?
No.
You know if there was iguana food found at my client's facility?
I don't know that.
Were you aware of any animals that died in the care of Mr. Rosenthal?
I did find out from him that several of the hedgehogs had passed away.
You weren't here, but at the last hearing, there was a Dr. Ann who testified that she examined 200 plus hedgehogs, apparently from the same facility that you examined yours. And her opinion was that they were all healthy, generally in good health. Can you explain how that could happen if they're all
Which
at some,
facility?
excuse me, if they're all housed and cared for in the same facility in the same way?
Objection, Your Honor, he's asking the witness to speculate now, not
Well,
just on her own.
because she's an expert. I'll allow the question. Go ahead, ma'am.
Which
Yeah, she testified that generally, that the group of hedgehogs, regardless of how they were kept and how many in a group, were in good health. And that the incidence of ear problems or scabing or whatever were consistent with what she would find in a group that size.
Well, I'm not sure what facility she examined those particular hedgehogs at. I'm just stating that what I saw with the hedgehogs I examined. I observation of different animals that they evaluated.
You never saw photographs of my client's facility,
No,
and you have no idea what the temperature or humidity was in his facility?
I do not.
Are you aware of, well, let's strike that. There's an argument that the USDA, who licensed my client, would have evaluated and examined the facility, including the hedgehog care and how they were kept. Would you agree that that's within their purview?
Well, it's a requirement to have USDA evaluation. Whether or not they are experts in how certain animals are kept is a question I would have.
But if the USDA, when they inspected his facility, approved how the hedgehogs were maintained,
As far
would
as
you
I-
have would you object, or would you have an opinion on whether my client could rely on that?
I don't know the frequency of the USDA visits for your client. I don't know if a veterinarian was actually evaluating them for the USDA, because unless you are aware of what these animals need and require, I don't know that an evaluation would be relevant.
you agree that the USDA has jurisdiction over licensing for
We
facilities
do, yes. Mhm.
that maintain wild animals?
Yes,
And to obtain a license, to do so, you have to pass their inspection, would you agree?
yes,
So if my client passed that inspection, he would have, by definition, had to have his facility inspected by somebody from the USDA.
yes, but my point being, I'm not sure that the inspectors are really knowledgeable about how these particular, especially exotic animals, should be housed.
Did you treat any of the hedgehogs?
Yes,
Yes?
yes.
You gave them medicine?
Yes, I started the ones with the skin issues on a broad spectrum antibiotic and some ointment antibiotic.
I have nothing further, Judge.
Go ahead.
Thank you. What would you expect to happen to the care, the level of care that these animals would receive in such a large group? So let me ask the question this way, let me withdraw that. Would you expect one person to be able to give adequate care to a group of animals this large?
No,
Why not?
it's just too much to manage. I mean, that's, those hedgehogs weren't the only animals that were in the care of this individual, and to each and every day examine over 200 or so hedgehogs, you would not be able to see, the subtle changes of the beginnings of infection. It just would be very, very near impossible to do.
Do hedgehogs require a lot of daily care,
They
maintenance,
do.
exercise, things like that?
Yes, they do. Mhm.
What types of things do you need on a daily
Well,
basis
they
to care for
need, they
hedgehogs?
need exercise, they need the proper temperature to maintain their health. As I said, overcrowding is a big problem for them, which was evident in what I saw. They're meant to be kept as, those little pets that, people have that are, in small numbers and in small groups and enjoyed for that and cared for properly. Not to be kept in an en masse kind of enclosure.
Some of those other animals, like the python, the iguanas, the giant rabbits, do they require a lot of daily care to raise as a pet?
Well, as far as the snakes and the pythons, and a lot of it has to do with, the size of these animals too. I mean, typically, most snakes don't need to be, handled on a daily basis. I mean, once they're adults, they're fed, anywhere from every 3 days to every 2 weeks. I mean, and they don't need a whole lot of physical interaction.
Would you expect one person to be able to give the proper and adequate care for all of these animals that you examined?
I would think it'd be very difficult.
If there were even more animals than what you examined, would you expect a person to be able to give a proper amount of care to even more animals than this?
One individual, you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That would be very impossible to do, to maintain the level of health on all of them with one person.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
How many people cared for these animals at my client's facility?
I don't know.
You say 5 people could do it?
No.
10?
It depends on their level of dedication and how many hours a day they work. I can't.
Well, I would
confidently
assume you'd agree that most of these animals shouldn't be even held in captivity if you're of the mindset that all these animals should be in the wild.
Well, it's it takes a very special individual to care for an exotic pet, and it's not for everyone. And I see so many issues in my private practice with these animals having serious illnesses because people don't understand the level of care that they need and the subtleties of their care.
My client's been in practice for over 10 years. Is that indicative that at some point he would have either been passionate about it and known what he's doing to keep these animals alive?
Your Honor, I'll object. That calls for a level of speculation outside her expertise.
Okay, go ahead and answer the question
I'm sorry, can you repeat that for me, please?
My client's been in practice doing this for 10 years. Okay? Do you have an indication that after all that time that he might have the experience and passion to do what you're saying?
I don't know. Just because you're doing something for a long time doesn't mean you're doing it the right way.
Well, that'll agree with you. I have nothing further, Judge.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Dr. Scott, thank you. You're excused.
I'd like to call Kelly Frey.
Can we take a
Oh, sure.
short break? Is that all right?
Yes. No, step outside.
How you doing, Mayor?
I'm walking in circles today.
Just let you know, Heather works this weekend, right?
Yeah,
You work next weekend?
next 2 weekends.
Next 2 weekends. Next week I'm gone, so I don't know how much paperwork I'll be able to get done for you.
Okay.
I'll do what I can. Won't be much.
I know, we're lost without you. That one time when no one knew, we didn't know you were, it's like, what do we do? We don't know, Dan's not here.
And Dan really has nothing to do with it.
But you help us tremendously.
I help you because I like you.
Thank you. Thank you too. Can't go anywhere.
Yeah. I need a copy of her report. I never got it.
You should have it. It's not.
It's just an
It's not a report, it's just an email.
It's what?
It's just an email kind of summary of what you did.
Never saw
Was
it.
that sent to you?
Never saw
I
it.
can send it again,
I
in
appreciate
case
it.
you don't have it or something like that, but, do you have internet in here?
7.
You know, as you're going this word progressive, I just figured it out. It's the way Mark handled them and taking them over to his place.
Choke. There you go. I seen him choke him on video.
You're not making me feel comfortable, Josh.
I know.
I'm coughing.
I had a little thing for a little bit.
can't hear. I don't know. You want me to?
No.
Yeah, go. Mhm.
Make sure you get it good.
I can't hear you.
Make sure you get her good.
Well, I mean, we scored our points with this person, but she was so hell-bent on, you know, that the animals, she's a regular vet.
No, I'm talking about beef, right? What I was saying
Piece
is,
of shit.
he, Rosenthal, told her what to say so much, but you know, she said the
You're
exact.
speculating to that.
No, I know, because she told the exact dimensions with the snake enclosure that he said he put them into the last time. It's not speculating, he said. Due to the question when she wrote that report, because I would never give it to her. They made her write a report after our last meeting. I know it for a fact.
I can't hear you,
They
man.
don't want to see that because they know a lot of them dead.
You gotta give me the name and, phone number
She texted this on
of your expert now that the judge ordered the inspection.
okay, you mean I can get that later today or something? Okay,
Just whenever you can.
okay. Oh, but I did want to say this.
Hmm?
I want my expert, my expert, I want him to look at them, I also want him to take pictures. We gotta have those pictures, because we need the pictures. Mhm. And you could base it on, like, you know, when we get back to the forfeiture at the end, you base it on the fact that the kangaroo had died on the day of the raid and transported. We didn't find out till 6 months later. We want to know how many other animals, you know what I'm saying, possibly died. Not the animals are doing better, but the conditions they're being kept in.
do that as quick as we can.
Yeah, I wanna see how much you charge. And it could be something that we did, right? They just stepped up.
Okay.
You want me to tell them you're ready?
Whenever, if it's convenient, yeah. I'm at your beck and call. So to
Are we
speak.
going beyond 1 o'clock today, or?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know.
fair enough.
Yeah.
You got a temperature?
No. I've had, the family had coughed 2 weeks ago. My daughter had a doctor's appointment where they kept her outside. And they looked over and they said, yeah, your symptoms aren't COVID, so they let her in. And everybody's better. I just still have a very slight cough that's lingering. It's probably a fall allergy. I don't know. And all I know is the daughter got screened and they weren't concerned about it. She had the same symptoms as all the rest of us. That's a Damascus for it.
You know if we're
In
going
case,
beyond,
in case I do have something.
Yeah. You know if we're going beyond 1 o'clock?
We probably can, because he probably doesn't have an afternoon docket, right? He's probably down just for us. How many witnesses do you have?
Well, it depends if he's gonna do the forfeiture. I don't know why he wouldn't.
Do you just have your client right now?
I have one other witness, but that would go towards the forfeiture more than.
Who's the other
I know
witness?
her.
Who's the other witness?
Huh?
Who's the other witness?
Zach Keller, another licensed USDA guy.
And they're here?
No, they don't let him in here, they let.
Yeah, but they're in the car.
Yeah. Can we do the inspection next week?
I want to get it done as fast as possible if the court's going to order it.
Say it again?
I want to get it done as fast as possible if the court's going to order it.
Well, they already ordered it.
She says Dawn is out of town. So we need to get permission from her to have somebody, you know,
Right.
let them into the
Now, I'll
facility.
send you the name and number of the person.
But I don't want the forfeiture stuff to be dragging on any longer. It's costing, it costs money every day. If the judge orders it, the bond's gonna be that much higher for the client every day that goes by.
Yeah, it's an issue.
You're all right, okay.
Yep. Please rise.
Be seated, be seated. We're semi-Zoom here, Jacob. Okay. John?
Yes.
Oh. Please, Mr. Holman, you said you wanted to call one more witness?
Yes,
Okay.
Kelly Franklin.
Oh, sorry, testimony to give him that one. Hearing the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
May I, Your Honor?
Please.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Kelly Froggatt.
How is it that you are employed?
I am a detective at the Romulus Police Department.
Is there a specific unit or division that you're assigned to?
No,
Is there a specific role or duty or assignment that you hold?
no.
What is your rank?
Detective, but just general investigative.
Are you assigned as the officer in charge for the case relating to Javon Stacks?
I am.
And what is the role of the officer in charge?
To obtain as much information as possible, to make some sense of it, put it all in one place, gather evidence if need be, speak with witnesses.
And were you present at his location at 31258 Ecorse Road in the city of Romulus, County of Wayne on August 15th, 2019?
Yes,
There were a number of animals that were taken into custody on that particular day, correct?
correct.
Are all of these animals considered to be under the care of the city of Romulus?
Yes,
And obviously the city animal control, local animal shelters cannot handle all of these animals that were taken, correct?
correct.
Was there a decision that was made to distribute these animals out to local people who could help care for these animals?
Yes, to people that animal control had worked with in the past, they contacted them.
Okay. Is Romulus still in a position that they are paying for these animals?
Yes,
Have you been compensating some of these people who have been caring for these particular animals?
yes,
Have you participated in the care of some of these animals yourself?
yes.
How so?
I have been assisting with cleaning hedgehog bins, for feeding and watering, for over a year now.
And where at?
At Ms. Karkuski's house,
That's Don Karkowski?
yes.
Approximately how many animals does she have?
I can't, there's just too many. I really don't know for certain how many hedgehogs there are. And she also has the fox.
Are the animals other places as well?
There are some at Mark Rosenthal's facility, and obviously the kangaroo is at the zoo.
How much money has Romulus paid out to?
Objection, Judge, it's not relevant how much money they paid for the care.
Yes, John, that's absolutely relevant because the court is going to need to set a bond based on the cost of care if the court decides to forfeit the animal.
But that would be the next hearing on the forfeiture issue. So, yeah, go ahead and answer the question.
Just for the supplies for the lion's share of the hedgehogs, it's approximately $13,000. That doesn't include any labor, water, heating, facility. That's specifically bedding, food, and then originally the bins and bowls that were needed for food and water.
And that's been paid out to who?
It's various, Ms. Karkuski has been reimbursed on several occasions. We have ordered food from like Tractor Supply. We've had to pick food up at Meijer. Where else, but couple places, but mostly reimbursement to Ms. Karkowski.
Has Mr. Rosenthal been given any reimbursement?
He is not.
Not by the city of Romulus?
Not from the city, no.
But he is also caring for a large amount of animals as well, though?
Yes.
Approximately how many animals and which animals?
He took a smaller portion of the hedgehogs, the snake, the iguanas, and the rabbits, and the peacock, I believe.
Have any of the animals been landed out to anybody else that's caring for them anywhere else?
I believe there is another USDA licensed individual that took approximately 100 hedgehogs and is caring for them.
Did she take those hedgehogs? Did that person take the hedgehogs from Mark or Don?
From Dawn.
Okay. Has that individual been reimbursed anywhere?
Not to my knowledge.
What type of labor goes into caring for these animals on a daily basis?
Well, the hedgehogs need fresh food, clean water, obviously every day. Their bedding needs to be stripped. They can be quite messy, so the bins need to be scrubbed if they get feces along the sides, and it's a lot. It takes a lot of time.
How often have you been going over and caring for some of these hedgehogs?
3 days a week.
For how long?
Anywhere from 3 to 5 hours, sometimes longer if I'm there on a weekend, because obviously I work full-time.
Are you aware of anybody else that's taking part in caring for some of these animals?
There is, I know her brother assists her.
Don Karkowski's brother?
Yes, sorry. And then there are a few other people that will stop in and help her.
Are these all people that are volunteering their time?
Yes.
So it's approximately how many people?
Right now, it's myself and 2 others, along with Dawn and her brother.
So that's 5 people then? You said you and 2 others and Dawn and her brother?
Yeah,
All going into the care for a portion of the hedgehogs that were recovered from the 31258 Ecorse Road?
yes.
You said that the cost reimbursed is strictly just for food and bedding so far at this point in time?
Correct, along with, like I said, originally there were some bins that needed to be purchased to separate the hedgehogs, and then some additional food and water bowls.
You said that you haven't tabulated any type of electricity concerns or heating or anything like that?
No.
Is that necessary for the care of some of these animals?
Well, the hedgehogs need a temperature-controlled environment. So, yeah.
And have they had that the whole time since they've been in the care of at least Ms. Karkowski that you're familiar with?
Yes.
Do you believe that the $13,000 captures the total cost of the care that's gone into the animals so far since August 15th, 2019?
No. That doesn't include veterinary care or anything that they receive either.
Do you believe it's higher than that, most likely?
Yeah.
I have no further questions for this witness at this time.
Ms. Clark?
Did you bring receipts with you?
Yes.
Can you provide us with copies of receipts that you're claiming is the cost of care?
Yeah, I can make copies. They're right in my case file.
Okay. Detective, is it fair to say that you don't have much experience working with kangaroos and hedgehogs and peacocks in your business?
Correct.
Do you have any personal experience in the care and treatment of these animals?
No,
You are an animal lover according to your Facebook page.
I am.
I'm assuming that's dogs and cats?
I had a snake. I help Dawn take care of wildlife at her house as well.
Okay. Did you know Dawn before this incident?
I did not.
Do you know if she's licensed by the USDA?
She, to my understanding, works under somebody else's USDA license.
Well, you can't do that, but is she licensed?
I can't say, I guess, I don't really know.
She's a resident of the city of Romulus?
Yes,
Isn't there, according to you, a prohibition about keeping those kind of animals in the city?
which kind?
Hedgehogs,
Correct.
foxes, wild animals.
Correct.
So why is she able to care for them if she's in the city?
She's working under the city's behest, so
She's working under what?
at the city's request to store evidence.
So there's the ordinance that you stated in your affidavit for your search warrant. You claim that there is a prohibition against carrying or possessing wild animals within the city of Romulus.
Correct.
Did you bother to read the next line of that?
I don't work for ordinance, so no, I don't have it in front of me, so no, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you knew of that ordinance, correct?
I was advised of that ordinance on that day.
I see. Well, how could you have been advised about that day if it was contained within your affidavit?
Because that's when I learned of it, and that's why it's in my affidavit.
You know, that same ordinance says that if they are prohibited from keeping them unless you are licensed by the state or federal government. You aware of that?
If you say that's what it says, I believe you.
Did you ever check or investigate Mr. Stacks if he had a license before the raid?
No.
Why not?
Well, I take that back. I was shown a picture of an expired license.
That was in the facility, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so then you knew he had a license.
it was expired.
Did you contact, and by the way, who issued the license?
It said USDA.
Did you bother to investigate to see if he had a current license?
Your Honor, I have to object to relevancy at this point in time. We're here for charges of animal cruelty, not whether Mr. Sachs is licensed or not, which doesn't have any bearing as to whether cruelty actually took place.
Well, actually, as the prosecutor knows, this is a preliminary exam. It's the only time I get to question witnesses before an actual trial.
First of all, he's right, but I'll allow the question. In other words,
Did you do any investigation to determine if Mr. Stacks had a current valid license on the date of your raid?
No,
You were given information and it didn't matter to you?
not with the information that I was provided that caused me to be at that location, no.
But it's your job, as you said, to provide the truth and all this information. Why isn't it important if he actually had the ability, the legal ability to possess these animals?
well, excuse me, I said I allow the question, but that's not the charge here. The charge is whether he had a license or not,
I'll move on, Judge.
was cruel or neglected or
I'll move on.
whatever. Okay.
Did you know Mr. Cameron Watson before this event?
No,
Did you know Mark Rosenthal before this event?
no,
Were you here in court when Mark Rosenthal testified the last time we were here?
yes,
As part of your affidavit for a search warrant, you claim that in June of 2019, he called the animal control, and you relied on that he claims to have reported Mr. Stacks having wild animals at the strip mall.
that is what I was advised by the ACO.
You heard his testimony where he denied making that call.
I did.
Did you investigate it? Did you talk to him at all before you got the search warrant?
It actually doesn't have any bearing on the details of the search warrant, whether he made a phone call in June or not, so
My
it wasn't
question is, did you
necessary.
call him?
No, I didn't.
Have you ever sent him an email?
No,
Has he ever sent you an email?
no,
Has Cameron Watson ever sent you an email?
no,
Have you ever sent him an email?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay. You claim that Cameron made a complaint to the department that wild animals and dangerous animals are being kept at my client's facility, correct?
He went to animal control.
And they, in fact, forwarded it to you to investigate as a criminal matter, correct?
I was told to investigate it by my captain, yes.
Okay. And you were given information that Cameron Watson told you that he worked for the strip mall, correct?
That is what I believed, yes.
Did you ever do any investigation to determine if that was true?
Well, I found out afterwards that he was not. So,
That
yes, I did.
that was a lie?
Yeah, well, that was my understanding of the information. It could have just been a miscommunication. I can't say for sure. It was a long time ago.
He made a claim that one of the tenants at the mall complained about the smell, correct?
Yes,
Did you investigate that?
I did speak with the, I believe it's a barber shop next door, and I did speak with them, and I don't know if I can say what they told me, but am I?
Yeah.
They did say that they had been wondering what was going on next door.
Did you investigate the mall owner to see if Cameron Watson actually worked for them?
No,
As it turns out, Mr. Watson actually worked for my client.
that's, my understanding, yes, I can't, if you say so, I believe he did.
Well, part of Mr. Watson's claim is he sent you some photographs showing bedding and feces and urine in the cages, correct?
Correct,
And you used that in your affidavit to claim that the animals were not being cared for.
correct.
You now found out afterwards that it was actually Mr. Watson's job to do those items for Mr. Stacks, correct?
I don't know what the terms of his duties were, so,
Well, you heard him testify last time that,
I don't
in fact,
remember.
he was employed there to daily clean the cages and replace the bedding. And
if that's his testimony, then yes, I just don't recall that
would
specifically.
that have made a difference in your investigation?
No,
Really?
really.
You didn't rely on his claim that the cages were dirty and their waters were filled with bedding and feces?
If their water is dirty and filled with feces and they're living in feces and urine, it doesn't matter who's supposed to be caring for them. It would still be neglect.
But it's by the same person who's complaining about it, whose obligation it is to clean it.
Is that a question?
Yes,
What, I don't understand.
sure. Would it have made a difference to you to know that the person who's making these complaints is the same person who's supposed to be curing them?
I said no to that.
When was the first time you entered 31258 Ecorse Road?
August 15th, 2019.
What time?
I don't recall.
And how'd you get in?
Mr. Watson had a key.
Okay, and did it surprise you that he had a key?
No,
Did it surprise you that he had no qualms about going into a facility that he claims are wild and dangerous animals?
no,
Did it concern you that he had no qualms in picking up the animals and taking them in and out?
I don't know that he did that.
How did Mr. Rosenthal get to the facility? Not physically, but how was he invited to come there?
Somebody from animal control, I believe, contacted him, or ordinance.
Did you did you notice that there was an air conditioning unit in the facility?
I did.
Did you notice if the mall had heat?
I don't understand what you,
Sure, usually there's a central heating and cooling system in the mall, and the tenants share in the cost of it pro rata.
oh, not specifically.
Did the facility have running water?
Yes,
When you got in there, did you look around?
yes,
Did it seem organized?
no,
It did not.
no.
This one too. I can't
These are pictures we can use.
Yeah, right.
Collectively.
You can do that collectively, it's fine. Detective, I'm handing you what's been collectively marked Defendants Exhibit 1, which consists of 4 large pictures and 1 smaller picture, and ask if you can identify them.
That, sorry, okay, they're all the same. So there's a picture of Mark Rosenthal, looks like when he's removing the python. This is the facility, the towers where hedgehogs are, giant bins where hedgehogs are, stacked on top of each other.
The big pictures, they reflect the condition of the facility on the day of the raid.
Of this particular portion of the facility, yes.
Of that particular portion, of course. Yes?
Yes,
And the picture, the smaller picture depicts a container that has bedding and a bowl of water.
correct.
Is there any thing in the water that you can see, any debris?
There was no animal in that area.
Had there been one when you guys raided the facility?
No,
And these pictures, you claim, look that the facility seems to be unorganized. Is that what your testimony is?
correct.
Judge, I move for their admission.
Any problem?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Judge. Did it ever occur to you that Cameron Watson was simply a disgruntled employee of my client and was faking photographs and complaints and allegations?
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
Go ahead and answer the question.
No,
Did you investigate him at all, or you just took his word?
I received the information that I received, and I looked at the pictures, and he was there and present, so I didn't have any reason to disbelieve him.
But you said that same argument that you just receive information about everything, from my client's license to everything. It's just that if you get information, you just rely on it and don't do any investigation?
No,
Well, you didn't investigate Mr. Cameron Watson. You didn't investigate the license issue. You didn't investigate his employment.
Are you talking about before the,
Before the raid, before you got your search warrant.
well, wouldn't that, some of that come afterwards?
Not necessarily.
Well, okay.
Nothing?
what, I don't know what the question is.
The
sounded like you were
question is,
making
it
a
sounds to me that
statement.
you received a call from somebody, and based on some other hearsay, you got a warrant to search the facility.
Again, is that a yes or, I don't understand what, it sounds like you're making statements to me, and I'm not trying to be difficult.
Okay, then I'll repeat it. You didn't investigate anything regarding my client's license. You didn't investigate anything regarding Mr. Watson and his credibility or its truthfulness. You didn't contact anybody at the mall to confirm his employment. Then what investigation did you do except get a warrant for the search of this facility?
I have to rely on the information from other people that I get. I don't have time to thoroughly investigate your client and anybody who may be providing information. We get information from people all the time, which leads to search warrants, and that's what happened in this case.
You ever talk to my client?
No,
Prior to searching his facility, did you ever try to get in contact with him?
I did. Well, no, somebody else did, I believe. I did not, no.
It was your case, you didn't try to get a hold of the defendant to talk?
No,
Did you attempt to get in the facility without the search warrant?
no,
Ever go there and knock on the door?
no.
Did you ask Mr. Watson who gave him a key to enter the facility?
No?
Who's Faith Angel Rollins?
I have no idea.
Says on your report that she made a complaint on August 15th at almost 10 a.m. Do you know who that was?
No.
You had the kangaroos picked up?
I personally did not, but they were picked up.
Did you arrange for them to be transferred to the Detroit Zoo?
I did not.
The kangaroos were able to ambulate while you were there, correct?
But I don't know what that
They
means.
were walking, they were alive,
Yes,
and somehow they got into the care of the Detroit Zoo?
yes.
Showing you what's been marked as defendant's exhibit number 2 and ask if you can identify that.
That is the form that the zoo provided me with on the day that they took them.
Is that your signature?
Yes,
Did you read this short form?
I did read it. I showed it to my captain. I explained to them that they would not be taking ownership at this time, that it was part of a forfeiture proceeding. And she said that was fine, but they needed the form signed, and I was told to sign the form by my captain.
This form says, the undersigned, which is you, hereby represents that they have full title and authority to transfer ownership of the animals to the city of Detroit. That's not true at all, is it?
No, that's what I explained to her, and I was-
Where on this form does it say you have an exception that, hey, I really don't own it, but I'm saying I do?
it doesn't say that.
So anybody who sees this, like myself, would think that you're simply lying.
Objection on our argumentative.
I think it's argumentative. I think she's already explained what she explained to the zoo.
I'd move for its admission, Judge.
Any problem?
No, you're not.
Detective?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that he had given.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
After you raided my client's facility, did you do any background check on my client as far as whether he had passed or failed prior inspections for the care of his animals?
Objection on irrelevance.
I tend to agree that that's probably what may have happened a year before versus what it was like at the time. You know, so,
You sustained it?
yes.
Thank you, Judge. You know why Mr. Stacks, or I for that matter, were never notified about that kangaroo's death until 6 months later?
I don't.
Objection, Your Honor, irrelevant.
Well, it's good. She said she did. You don't know, correct?
No,
So.
Did you seize a industrial air purifier from my client's facility?
no,
You notice if there was one?
there was one on top of a shelf.
There was one.
Yeah,
You know what it's used for?
to filter air.
Okay. I assume you have no experience to tell us the health condition of these animals?
Correct.
Thank you, Judge.
Redirect?
Nothing more, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you. Detective? here? What's happening
Uh,
from your point of
The
view?
people are finished with all of our witnesses, so we will rest. We're prepared to make,
Let's see
well,
the-
we are prepared to make arguments that
I thought
considering
you
defense
said you
has
wanted to call
witnesses,
witnesses.
yes.
I
Or
do
you wanna
want to
do
call
that?
witnesses relating to the forfeiture.
Forfeiture, okay. And that's, you still have to examine some of the items in discovery
Correct.
we talked about. So let's talk about the, I assume you're moving to bind over.
Yes,
And if it's bound over the misdemeanors, at least Monroe County misdemeanors tagged along with the,
if it's bound over,
yeah,
yes.
and, okay, so,
But I would think once you do that, you lose jurisdiction on the forfeiture action.
I don't think so.
Not necessarily, I've had this happen one time before where a judge in Lincoln Park bound over the examination on one day, and then a few days later, we had to come back and argue some different things about the forfeiture hearing, and we finished the forfeiture hearing at that point in time.
Would it be,
Technically, the two cases should have two different numbers. So
I
we are
don't
dealing with two different
think
cases.
they do, I don't know, I don't see two different.
They
Here's
should,
what-
because one is criminal and one is technical.
I realize that, we discussed that earlier about probable cause versus, preponderance and so forth, but I guess for convenience, if no other reason, and continuity or several other factors, I should probably, just so there's not a problem with me losing jurisdiction, hold on to this until the forfeiture action is decided. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I'd ask you to do that.
Wow, thank you.
Well, because I would like you to listen to my witnesses.
Yeah, by all means.
They may impact your decision otherwise on the.
One other
So I
point.
just asked the court to give us one more date,
Sure.
and we can finish. He can provide you with the discovery.
That would be fine. The other thing is, I'm using 750.50 and 50B.
Yes.
That's your understanding of the statutes?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing is, just so when it comes down to the argument about witnesses, at least, I'll direct this to you, Mr. Clark, at least, well, I allow people in as so-called experts under 702, scientific, technical, because of their knowledge, skill, experience, and so forth, they knew more about, they can help me try or fact. At least one of those you objected to, I allowed, but in retrospect was not an expert, just to let you know. But they can obviously, I can't remember which one, well, I wrote it down here, but at least one of them can testify to what they saw, but didn't know enough about what.
Are we talking about the experts that have already been?
Oh, all of them were fine, except there was one that I think Mr. Clark objected to, mostly because most of the people know a lot more about kangaroos, hedgehogs,
Yeah.
and whatever than I do.
Was Karkowski, I think, that was?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's right. And
She wasn't, was she offered as an expert?
I don't know, but the point is, she was not an expert. If I allowed her to testify an expert, I was wrong,
I don't
as the
think,
expert portion.
I don't think that she did.
Well, I thought she did, but I've been known to be wrong too, so.
It's been 7 months.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember some of the details.
Okay, well,
Do we have some of the transcripts available from?
I just have my notes. And,
It probably, if we're gonna come back and make an argument, I suppose it could be useful to have some of the transcript from the examination that happened so long ago, so I would know what to
like I
reference
said,
back to.
I've got 6 pages or so of notes, plus statutes, plus everything else that goes along with it, but the transcript might be pretty difficult to follow.
I didn't know if it had already been.
Not that I'm
If
aware
it had
of.
already been produced since it's been so long.
Not that I'm aware of.
The other thing is your predecessor had us quasi-brief the statute on forfeiture
Oh,
before you came into the picture.
Oh.
So there should be, well, mine is entitled Defendant's Objections to Bind Over and Forfeiture. I'm not sure what yours was entitled, but you recall that you asked us to do that. And at some point, I'd ask the court to review it. If not, I can
yeah,
send
if I,
it.
let me see here. defendant's objection to bind over and/or forfeiture. Son of God is here.
My argument may be included with the actual complaint and summons that I have with the court, which is.
Well, I also will take oral argument too, so don't worry about it, but I will read this.
Okay.
And again, thank you both, and I think you've been very professional, and I always appreciate that. And
So Judge, my concern at this point now is I would like this all done as quick as possible.
Yeah.
I have
oh, I know it's been
Romeo's breathing
It's
down my
been
neck about all the money that they have to
the
spend.
term
getting
hanging
these
fire
animals
for
every
some
day.
time. Let's get your calendars out if you want to. We'll go off the record here. I'm very flexible.
I've got my calendar.
Well, I don't have my
Oh.
calendar. The young lady sitting in front of me can probably figure that out. So why don't we, can we come in here?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Marianne, that's you, young lady sitting in front of me.
I can.
Are you guys coming back?
Which way do I go?
Oh, you can go in that one.
excuse me, sorry. Is there any way that you could knock on the door just to get my attorney's attention or something? I just wanna say, yeah, I just wanna tell him if he could do it in November, cause I'm gonna be booked, it'll be hard for me to go.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it, I was listening.
Thank you.
Let's go.
So we're okay with that date, we're gonna stick with that?
Say it again.
We're gonna stick with that date?
Yeah.
Okay, you'll
Yeah.
talk to them. All right. We need,
I am going to
we need-
memorialize in an email what what it is, and I'll draft an order for you to approve.
yeah, we need the contact info of your,
Yes.
the person that you wanna come
Yep.
visit these things, so.